What's going on, everyone? My name is Justin, your friendly neighborhood personal trainer and health coach. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how to properly diagnose and correct an excessive forward lean when performing a squat. This is one of the most common compensations I see with my clients. The ubiquity of the excessive forward lean compensation can be mainly attributed to inactivity and sitting for long periods of time. I'll typically see this compensation with my clients who work desk jobs and who have long commutes to and from work. Our bodies are naturally going to adapt to whatever actions we put them through, so it makes sense that sitting or being in a hip flexion position for extended periods of time is going to be what the body favors when doing other movements as well, such as a squat. The reason why you want to correct an excessive forward lean is because the wrong muscles are working overtime for the weaker muscles that aren't firing properly. This is called synergistic dominance, and over time this can lead to ailments such as low back pain, hamstring, quad, and even groin strain, and SI joint dysfunction. Now, the kinetic chain that is the human body does not compartmentalize injuries. Over time, an injury to one part of the body is going to translate into injuries at other parts of the body, such as the foot and ankle complex or the knees. This is why it's important to correct any compensations that you may have. So there are 4 steps to correcting an excessive forward lean compensation, but it's important to properly diagnose it before taking part in unnecessary corrective strategies. So here you can see that I'm demonstrating a squat with quite a bit of forward lean as I get into my lowered position. Typically, when you have this kind of compensation, your calves, your hip flexor complex, and your abdominal complex are all tight and overcompensating, while your Gluteus Maximus, your Erector Spinae, your deep abdominal stabilizers, and potentially your anterior tibialis are weak and underfiring. So this is a pretty egregious example, but what if you don't demonstrate an excessive forward lean that severe, but you still feel like you're leaning forward a little too much when you squat? So what you can do is have someone record you or watch yourself in the mirror and squat with your hands up to the sky. Keep your arms fully extended up and back so that they don't fall forward in front of your ears. Make sure you are positioned so that the person who is recording you has a good view of the side of your body. When you do this overhead squat, what you're going to do is squat like you're sitting in a chair. When you squat down, you're looking to see if your shin bone is parallel to your trunk and arms that are straight up while in that lowered position. However, if you see that these lines cross between your shin bone and the trunk and arms, then you exhibit an excessive forward lean and are at higher risk of future injury. Now, the root cause of the problem can be detected by performing the same overhead squat, but this time putting a 10-pound plate under your heels. Now, what this is going to do, it's going to take your foot and ankle complex out of the equation by putting them into extension. So if you have restricted range of motion when flexing your ankle, then the body will naturally compensate by leaning forward when you squat to alter the body's center of gravity to help keep its balance. Now, because of this, we're going to redo the overhead squat, but keep the ankle in extension. Perform another overhead squat with 10-pound plates under your heels. If you find that your forward lean has been corrected, meaning your trunk and shin bones are now parallel, then the problem stems from a lack of dorsiflexion at the foot and ankle complex. If you are still leaning forward with the plates below your heels, then the problem can be mostly isolated to your trunk. So now that you've diagnosed that you have an excessive forward lean and what part of the body is causing the compensation, it's time to correct it. The first step is to inhibit your overactive or tight muscles using a foam roller. When we inhibit our overactive muscles, what we're doing is applying pressure to our trigger points or knots in the fascia and the underlying muscles. Now, these trigger points decrease the normal elasticity of your muscle, making them less pliable. When we apply pressure to these trigger points, what we're doing is stimulating the Golgi tendon organ and the interstitial receptors of the fascia, which causes an inhibitory effect on the muscle spindles, which preps them for greater lengthening, which we get to later on when we start to stretch the muscles after inhibition. So the muscles that you want to inhibit are your tensor fascia lata, your Gastrocnemius and Soleus, or your calves, your Piriformis, as well as your Rectus femoris. Now, it's important when you're inhibiting your overactive muscles that you row slowly, about an inch per second, and you want to go until you find a trigger point. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't want to keep on rolling back and forth fast along these muscles, as we're trying to inhibit the fascia and the underlying muscles, not excite them. So when you find a trigger point, what you're going to do is you're going to hold that spot for 30 seconds and apply maximum pressure. Now, if it's too painful and you cannot apply maximum pressure, what you can do instead is only apply light pressure, but you want to hold that spot for 90 seconds instead. Now, what you can do is go up and down the muscle and find every single trigger point and hold each spot. Or if you're strapped for time, what you can do instead is just find the most tender spot on the muscle and just release that point. The way to foam roll the TFL is to first find the bony point on the outside of the hip. This is the greater trochanter of the femur. Once you've identified that, you are then going to find the iliac crest. You'll see what I do here to find the iliac crest is I'll put my hands on my hips, and then the space between my index finger and my thumb is where you'll find that iliac crest. Now the TFL will be located not on the side, but in the front corner of the leg. So think about where the pockets would be if you were wearing workout shorts. That's where your TFL is located. The TFL is a hip flexor, abductor, and external rotator, and is tight in a lot of people. Once you've found it, you're going to then place it gently on the foam roll. Now that you're on the foam roll, take your opposite leg and bring it over the leg that you're inhibiting. Bring your knee to the floor so you are rotated and in the perfect position to push into that TFL. Roll along this muscle slowly at about 1 inch per second and hold any trigger spots for 30 to 90 seconds. Switch sides and then repeat on the other leg. The next muscles you want to inhibit are your quadriceps. Primarily though, your rectus femoris. The rectus femoris is responsible for accelerating knee extension and hip flexion. Now the rectus femoris originates on the anterior inferior iliac spine of the pelvis and connects all the way down to the patella or the kneecap. So what you're going to do is start on the floor in a plank position with your foam roller starting right above your knee. Slowly roll up 1 inch per second, and again hold any trigger points that you feel for 30 to 90 seconds. The next muscles to inhibit are your gastrocnemius and soleus, or your calf muscles. Now these muscles are responsible for plantar flexion of the ankle joint. To roll these, you start on the back of your Achilles tendon and roll all the way to the back of your knee. The best way to apply pressure is to keep one leg over the shin bone and hold yourself up on your hands. Now if you can't hold this position or have poor posture while doing so, then it's alright to stay seated and apply pressure on the foam roll using your own leg strength or using the other leg to press down and apply more pressure. So again, you're going to hold the tightest trigger point for 30 to 90 seconds, then switch legs and repeat. The piriformis is your last muscle to inhibit. The piriformis is a muscle of the hip that is under the gluteus maximus that originates on the anterior surface of the sacrum and attaches to the greater trochanter of the femur. Now it's responsible for hip external rotation, abduction, and extension. So to get this muscle, you want to sit down on the foam roll and roll to the side of your butt. Take your leg on the same side you're going to roll and bring it up and over your other leg. To open up the hip and reach that piriformis, you want to pull the knee across your body. Find the most tender spot on the piriformis and hold it for 30 to 90 seconds. Then switch legs and repeat. So foam rolling is a technique that can be safely performed every single day. So every day what you want to do is do one set of 30 to 90 seconds for each of those overactive muscles. So now that we've inhibited the overactive muscles, they're now primed for lengthening through static stretching. So we're going to do one stretch for each muscle, and we're going to hold each stretch for 30 seconds. Now make sure that you do this after inhibition, as this will optimally allow the muscles to be lengthened. Let's first start with the hip flexors by performing the kneeling hip flexor stretch. So get in a kneeling position with one leg back and the other in front. Start with your knees slightly behind your heel so you have room to move forward without putting too much pressure on your knee. Draw your belly button into your spine and squeeze your butt. Shift your hips forward and raise the arm that is on the same side as your rear leg. Lean laterally to the opposite side of the back leg, keeping your weight in your front heel and driving through your hips. Hold for 30 seconds and then repeat on the opposite side. The next stretch is going to focus on the piriformis. To target your piriformis, we're going to do the figure 4 stretch. Start on your back on the floor and bend one leg 90 degrees at the hip and the knee. Take your other leg and bring it over the bent leg just above the knee. Take your hands and wrap them around your hamstring so you can pull your knee closer to your chest to get a deeper stretch. Hold the stretch for 30 seconds, then repeat on the opposite side. Lastly are the calf muscles, starting with the gastrocnemius. Face a wall and stand in a staggered stance. Bend your front knee and extend your rear knee. Lean against the wall and extend your rear leg by pressing your heel into the ground. Maintain a straight line from your head to the heel of your back foot and use your arms to move your chest closer to the wall. Hold for 30 seconds and repeat on the opposite leg. To stretch your soleus, the position is similar. Take the same position you would for your gastrocnemius stretch, but move your stance in by bringing your back leg forward. Bend both knees and lower your body to the floor. Be sure to press the back heel into the ground while you're lowering. Hold this stretch for 30 seconds and then repeat on the opposite side. The next step in correcting an excessive forward lean is to isolate and strengthen the underactive or weak muscles that are responsible for hip extension and spinal stabilization. So the muscles that we're going to activate are your Gluteus Maximus, your Erector Spinae, and your deep core stabilizers. For each of these exercises, you'll be doing 2 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions with a 2-second isometric contraction, which is just holding the end position, and then a 4-second eccentric contraction, which is 4 seconds coming down from that ending position. Now you're going to want to do these exercises 3 to 5 days a week, and you have the option of doing them one at a time, or you can also do it in a circuit fashion. The first exercise we're going to perform is the prone hip extension using a stability ball. So start by placing the ball on your abs and keep your toes and hands on the ground. You want to tuck your belly button in and point your foot behind you. Now we don't want to be moving the leg to the outside, bending our knee, arching the back, or externally rotating the foot. So simply lift your leg straight up off the ground slowly and raise it up until you feel your glute firing. You want to hold that end range for 2 seconds and come down nice and slow for 4 seconds. Once you've completed one side, move to the other leg. The next exercise we will perform is to strengthen up the Erector Spinae, which isometrically stabilizes your spine during functional movements. Now for this one, you're going to start by lying on the floor with your palms facing the floor and elbows and knees extended. So you want to bring the belly button in and squeeze your butt. Slowly lift your chest off the ground while bringing your shoulder blades together and dropping them down your back as much as you can. Keep your arms raised off the ground and toes on the floor. You're going to raise your chest up slowly and hold it at the top for 2 seconds. Then you're going to come down on a 4-second count and then slowly repeat the sequence. The last exercise we're going to do is aimed at targeting your deep core stabilizers. So for this, we're going to do a bird dog. To start this exercise, you'll need to be on your hands and knees with your hands under your shoulders and your knees under your hips. So raise one arm and simultaneously raise the opposite leg. This should be done in sync and not one at a time. Reach forward with your arm and point your toes as to reach behind you with your opposing leg. You're going to hold this position for 2 seconds and bring them both back onto the floor at the same time, counting down from 4 seconds. Once you've come down to the floor, repeat the motion again with the same tempo, but with the opposite arm and leg until you've completed 10 to 15 reps on each side. All right, we are almost done. So now that we've relaxed and stretched the muscles that are pulling you forward and strengthened the muscles that will bring you back into alignment, we now need to do an integrative dynamic movement that'll challenge this new range of motion and the muscles that we just activated. So the exercise that we will perform in this case is a ball squat with an overhead press. So this exercise will be performed slow and controlled with low weight and with perfect posture. Now this will enhance your neuromuscular control in all planes of motion and improve your intermuscular coordination, which is the ability of your muscles to work together with proper timing and activation. To perform the ball squat to overhead press, start with a stability ball against the wall and place the ball on the middle part of your back. Start with your dumbbells in the start position of a neutral grip overhead press with your elbows pointed forward and squat down as low as you comfortably can. And once you come up, raise both dumbbells up together in a straight line. Bring them back down to the starting position and then repeat the motion. Be sure to keep your weight in your heels and push your hips back while squatting. This exercise can be included in your circuit of activation exercises, or you can do it after you've completed your activation exercises. Perform this exercise 3 to 5 days per week for 3 sets of 10 to 15 reps, and move slowly and controlled on the squat and the overhead press. And that's all there is to it. Be consistent with this program, and in time you'll see your squat go from this to this. If you have any questions about this program, please let me know in the comments below. If you found this video to be helpful, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell before you go. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.